Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. I'm Mary Crafts, and this is one of my get-tos in life. I get to be your host on this podcast every single week of the year, come to you to offer you some sort of idea of how I might restart my life, or how I might embrace something new in my life, or what is it that's hanging me up from discovering my very best self. And we get to visit that now 259 times. I'm like most people. By the time they get to this many episodes, have long since decided, I don't like this podcasting thing. I have to be committed every single week. Well, can I just say I love it? I love being committed to you. I love bringing myself every single week. And today, being that this is the end of the year of 2022, I'm going to kind of give you something to start the new year with. Now, if you're listening to this podcast in 2024, or at the end of 2023, or wherever in point in time you're listening to this podcast, don't think that this is not for you. Don't think, oh, that was, starting of the new year. I should jump on. This podcast is for anyone who's any time in their life going to step in to something new. This podcast is for when you are ready to make that transformation, but you don't want to misstep, or you need a little encouragement, or you need to just think through, what is it that's stumbling in my life? And why can't I ever just claim that peace that I know is inside of me? This podcast is for you. And as I was thinking about this podcast of mine and the transformation, just for kicks and giggles, I went back and listened to a few at the beginning, a few around number 70, and then jumped up to 150, and then, 200 plus, and began to kind of see, so what has changed and how have I transformed? What has been the value of this podcast for me? And I hope to shout, there's been a lot of change. So, in the beginning, I wasn't as good of a podcaster. I do think I have some natural abilities. In fact, my 23andMe test actually came back and said that I'm gifted in language. And at first I thought they meant like learning a foreign language. I thought, okay, they don't have any idea. I spent 4 years in college trying to learn Spanish and still can't speak a word. Okay. But that's not what kind of language they were talking about. They were talking about that I'm gifted in the ability to speak. And I really do think that's one of my gifts. In fact, I know that it is. And I claim that. So I've always had that, but I've had to, over the episodes, fine-tune how that worked and how I could best portray my thoughts and my feelings to you through that camera, through this sound, to your hearts. And in the beginning, as I looked at a couple other people's podcasts, I thought, okay, they are boring. And I'm going to come on my podcast with this, boom. And I spoke loudly and I spoke energetically. Not that I don't now, but it was different. It was definitely different. I find in my podcast now, whether I'm interviewing or whether I'm here by myself, I'm just a little bit more peaceful. I'm a little bit less of having to prove who I am and my value. And I used to have to do that by standing on a coffee table and screaming at the top of my voice. But I don't need to do that anymore. I can speak quietly and intently, and you're listening. And you guys continue to listen. You're amazing. I love you. So the journey of 2022 has been like every year, when you look back at the whole, how can you say anything else other than this was a miracle? It was miraculous. And so I think that this time of year, as we look at this end of the year, as we start in, everybody knows about those New Year's resolutions. Every one of us have failed at them enough times that we finally have come to the point of saying, oh, okay, I'm not setting any New Year's resolutions ever again. And that's my New Year's Eve resolution. Okay. We're not into deathbed confessions. We're not into what they say is there are never atheists in a foxhole because when they're faced with death, suddenly they believe in God. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about taking an actual accounting of where you've been in 2023. And I think this is a critical step. I think it's something we all should do. So I want to tell you how I do my accounting. I actually get a pen and paper. I open up my journal and I write a physical timeline. And sometimes I use my photo gallery or on one of my social media accounts. And I just kind of scroll through the year and think, oh yeah, there was that and there was that. That doesn't cover everything that happened to me, but it gives me a lot of prompts. And I actually write down, January, blah, blah, blah. February, blah, blah, blah. And I actually put down a timeline of what I did with 365 days. It allows me to be accountable to me, only to me. I don't show it to anybody else. I don't show it to the public and say, look at everything I've done. I don't show it to God and say, okay, I've now earned my way. Okay. It's just for me to see what I did with that vast amount of time. And let me tell you, when you get to be my age, time, you realize, is the most precious commodity you have. So did I spend it wisely? Even times I joked and laughed and just played my heart out for days at a time, that wasn't wasting. That was absolutely seriously enjoying myself, John, my family, people around me, Mother Nature, all of it. So I would like you to make it a timeline for yourself. Just jot it down of your experiences, all the adventures that you experienced, different people that walked into your life. That's the physical part of your life. Maybe someone left you. Maybe someone died. Maybe someone got married. There are lots of physical pieces to that timeline. But to make an accounting is critical for your next step into the next year. And then after I've done my physical timeline, I do an emotional timeline. How have I changed emotionally? Where have I gone? What have I gone through? Where am I at today emotionally that I wasn't there in January of 2020? And as you and I both know, if you listen to this podcast regularly, last January, I had a momentous emotional and spiritual change in my life when I was given and accepted the mission of oneness for the rest of my life on this planet. That happened in 2022 at 68 years old. Another emotional timeline was when I realized how much generational baggage I had been carrying. That the issues that had been my mom's and my grandmother's were mine, and how I had passed them to my children. That baggage of never being enough. And then the healing of that. That all happened in the last 365 days. Okay? The mental timeline. What have I learned? What have I studied? I started into the book, this Ancient Secrets of the Master Healer. I have listened to more things. I've attended more retreats. I've grown mentally, spiritually, understanding more specifically what I believe. Not just saying, oh, I'm a member of this religion or I'm not a member of that religion, but to actually understand what I believe and the forces that I rely on in my life. What's different today than it was January, February, March, April of last year? Another one I think it's great to keep track of is your social timeline. Just jot a few things down, key things about your social timeline. And you might think, well, that's kind of crazy, Mary. I do that already on my social media account. I'm not necessarily talking about your social media account. I'm talking about who came into your life that you either had some pain dealing with or enhanced you to a degree you never believed possible. Who did you walk away from in your life because they weren't maintaining your boundaries? Which one of your children did you realize had drawn so far from you and bringing them home. Social timelines are super important as you realize, are your social connections expanding or are they retracting? And if they are expanding, are they expanding because that's the best thing to serve you? Or are they retracting because you have learned to set boundaries? One of the things that I learned about my social interactions in 2022, there was a time in my life where I felt no one honored me. And as I pondered on that, I realized it was because I hadn't honored myself. I had not thought enough of myself to set boundaries, to stand up, to claim who I am, this beautiful feminine goddess that was brought to this earth to go through this experience and become even a more glorious person, a more glorious feminine goddess. And so who am I bringing into my life that lifts me to that point? And who have I let go of in my life? Who have I unfollowed that wasn't bringing me to that goal? This is your time of reflection of what you did with the last 365 days. I hope it's something. I hope it's something wonderful. And if it wasn't wonderful, like right here in front of you, then was it of great value to you because it's bringing you to a place of deeper and greater understanding. So when we create that vision of our previous journey of what was happening in 2022, the next step becomes so much easier of seeing the journey ahead in the next 365 days. What's next for us? When you understand where you've been, have you either taken advantage of that or have you wasted it? Now you can set clearly what's coming next. What am I absolutely going to be committed to no matter what, no matter where, with who, what I'm doing? I'm going to be committed to what I'm creating in the year 2023. I love that. Looking ahead and actually creating it so that in my brain, so I can create it in my life. Now, as you look back on this 2022, this is not time for beat up. I'm not having you do this so you can see how little you did. I'm having you do this so that you can understand your why. And by understanding your why, we've all heard that so many times. And I talk about it so much in my book. And this is the quote I use in my book that I came up with, that change happens when your why to change becomes stronger than your fear of changing. I want you to just think about that for a minute. Your why to stay stuck may be stronger than your why to change. And you think, well, that's kind of stupid, Mary. Why would I choose to stay stuck? Well, I'll tell you why. Because people have fear. And we're afraid to look inside. We're afraid to turn the camera inward because we're afraid of what we might see. We don't want to go through that pain. We don't want to relive those experiences. We don't want to understand them. We want to stick them in the ground, cover them up with sand, put them under the rug, in hopes that we never have to take a look at what was going on that created this person and this personality today, right now. When I was little, we used to have, in fact, we even had a little ceramic piece of it that my mom had on the counter. And it was 3 monkeys. And the monkeys were hear no evil, and one had their hands over their ears. The next one was see no evil, and they had their hands over their eyes. And the next one was speak no evil, and they had their hands over their mouth. Well, I've kind of changed that just a little bit in thinking of evil not as evil, but as self-reflection. and that we are in this space sometimes we don't want to see the darkness. So no. I don't hear the darkness speaking and screaming at me. No. I'm not going to see the darkness. I'm going to close my eyes. I'm not going to allow myself to look inside. No. And speak it. Oh my gosh, heaven forbid that I speak the darkness that may be inside of me. I want to hide. What have I said before? What's another one of my best quotes from my book? The healing starts when the hiding stops. That's one of my greatest desires for me and one of my greatest desires for you. Because we have this in our head that it's better to hide. It's better to look away. It's better to pretend that we are perfect and that no problems ever existed in us than to look. Because we're afraid. I want you to know that I understand that. I understand it more than you could possibly ever know. At deep levels. But somehow, I found the courage to step forward. And that's my wish for you in 2023. I keep saying that date, and I keep thinking the person who listens to this in 2025 is going to go click buzz. But these are universal things that we've been looking at since way before we started counting time. We were afraid of different things then, perhaps. But fear, nonetheless, has been the journey of humankind into stepping in to who they are. So my commitment for the new year, let me just share with you after I've done my reflection and how I've been accountable to me for those 365 days. This is now what I'm committed to for the new year. I'm committed, more than I've ever been in my life, to no more hiding. I'm going to ask the questions. Why are you feeling that? What's going on? Why would that generate those feelings in you? I'm going to ask the questions, and I'm not going to look away. I'm going to seek clarity. Yes, I want to see clearly what has brought me to me. And when I see that clearly, I can see the direction to becoming more loving, more authentic, more vulnerable, more of help, more of service, if I see things clearly. The other thing I'm going to claim in 2023 is motherhood. Now, when I told that to John, he said, I think we're a little old for that, baby. He says, let's see, by the time he'd be 12, I'd be, 89. I'm like, oh, first of all, you thought it was a guy, huh? And you were worried about teaching him sports. Well, it's probably a girl. But I didn't mean that kind of motherhood. I meant the universal motherhood. More than anything else, I show my love by being people's mother and holding them and giving them that unconditional motherhood love. I'm a mother to my children, and I'm committed in the next 365 days to be closer to them, to be more authentic with them, to help them with their healing process. I commit to being their best mother ever. That's what's ahead for me. To being a mother to all. So I want you to think about, if not specifics like, oh, I want to travel here and I want to travel here, I would like you to reflect on where you want to be. What? Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, socially, and physically in the next 365 days. That's a long time. That's a lot of time. Think how much, if you are focused on this every single day, think how much you can accomplish. Almost anything can be accomplished in 365 days. It can. Recently, I talked to you a lot about this, how I go into meditation. And recently I was in meditation. And I'm born in August, so I'm a Leo. I've always saw myself as a lion. That was my spirit animal. If ever I needed courage, I would bring my lion forward and roar. I would stand up. I was the king of the pack. I was a lion for so long. But when I was in meditation, you're gonna think this is a bit crazy. But do you know what spirit animal came to me? Okay, I hope I don't cry here. The spirit animal that came to me was a rabbit. A little brown rabbit. Now think of my surprise when I had been expecting a lion. That's nuts. But as this rabbit just came into my vision, and more clearly into my vision, I sat and observed my rabbit. My rabbit was so quiet. I don't know if I've ever heard a rabbit make a sound. And the next thing that I looked about this rabbit was that its ears were huge, and this rabbit was intent on listening. This rabbit was like a rebirth for me, and the rabbit was extremely intelligent and listened carefully. It did represent fertility. It did represent being a mother to all. Rabbits are prolific, and they live in abundance. Rabbits love to be nestled down in their burrow with their children. And I thought, how fitting for a rabbit to show up for me now during this year, I will be 70 years old. And that I am transforming from the lion to the rabbit. I've never had a hard time using my voice and shouting with a roar. I've never had a hard time walking into a space and having everybody know that I was the king of the pack. But I've had a difficult time with the other. And I'm going to claim that this year. The quiet, the listening, the prolific, the motherhood, the rebirth of Mary Crafts into a different spirit animal. So whatever is in front of me, you don't really know what's coming. You might think, well, these are the things I want to bring, but what really is coming, I have to say that's probably the great gift of this plan on this planet, is we really don't know specifically the logistics of what's coming in our life. Some of us might run and hide. Some of us might end it right now if we saw what was coming. Others of us might throw our arms open wide and say, yes, yes, come in, I'm ready for you. We don't really know, but I do know this, that whatever is in front of me this next year, as I turn 70, I know how to be brave. I know how to take life with courage. I know how to gird up my loins and say, step in, because the beauty is on the other side of fear. I also know this with whatever lies ahead. Running heals nothing. Running heals nothing, but courage heals everything. Courage will heal you. When you have the courage to step in, to openness, to experiencing who you are, for doing the hard work of looking inside, that kind of courage heals everything. I kind of think of myself as that rose. You know, there's the movie Shrek, and he talks about, I'm an onion. And Donkey doesn't want him to be an onion because there's, and Shrek's like, no, there's layers. And he goes, well, can't we do other things that are layers? Can't we be a parfait? I'm not a parfait, I'm an onion. And Donkey says, well, people don't really like onions. And I love that part. I think it's great. But the concept is that we are made of layers, and getting down to those layers and through them and allowing us to peel them off. So I wasn't wild about being an onion either. So let me give you another vision for that. Can we all be the ever blooming, ever unfolding rose? My mother loved roses in her rose garden. I love roses in my rose garden because as I watch them out there from being the tiny bud and growing and opening and opening until they're all the way open and I can look right down and see the golden seed pods. Ah, the rose that never stops unfolding. The challenge is to keep our heart open and allow people to see in to the golden center of us. That is the challenge. And that being human, just the very fact of being human, this act of the human experience is an act of courage to step in, to keep your heart open. Step into this new year. Draw in the love that will strengthen you. Give out the love that will strengthen you. And through the struggles that are in there, that's when you get to do this whole thing the podcast is about. We're about crafting a meaningful life. Keep your rose ever unfolding. That's how you craft a meaningful life. During the holiday season, of course, we always receive many wonderful gifts. Some of them are bath bombs, because they're quick and easy. Some of them are very thought out gifts. Some of them are meant to have a purpose, meant to inspire. And I'm blessed to receive so many of those kind of gifts that are meant to inspire. I was given a bracelet this December, and I have it on today. It says, "Stronger than the storm." I know that the person who gave me this bracelet gave it to me to strengthen me and to let me know that no matter what was coming my way, I was stronger than the storm. But as I kept looking at this bracelet, there was something about it that kind of just didn't sit quite right with me, because I felt like I had to kind of reframe that phrase, stronger than the storm, because it brought up inside of me, I don't know, a sense of victimhood, like I'm a victim of the storm. The storm is coming at you, but just remember, you're bigger and stronger than the storm. It kind of felt like it was saying, you're stronger in spite of the storm. Am I stronger in spite of the storm? Yes, I would withstand the storm, but am I stronger than the storm? As I reframed this in my mind to what I know to be true and what I talk about on this podcast all the frickin' time, and that is, we are stronger because of the storm. It is the storm that has designed who I am. The storm is my gift. Not that I'm stronger than it. I am the storm. I am the storm. It's my gift. I'm not stronger than it. I'm stronger because of it. It's what has crafted my meaningful life. And you might say, well, it's easy for you. You don't really have a lot of struggles right now, Mary. Most of my struggles perhaps are behind me, but maybe not. Maybe in the next 365 days, I may encounter something with my health. I may discover that all the money that I thought I'd put away for my retirement years is now worth half of what it was. And that I'm facing, how am I going to do that? And how am I going to live in abundance when I have half the amount of money I thought I did? Maybe I'm going to lose a loved one this year. Maybe I'm going to experience loneliness. Lots of storms could be yet ahead of me at this age. I'm not storm-free either. And so I want to be stronger because of the storm. And that each step I walk into, I am stronger. Recently, this is a hard thing for me this Christmas. Recently, I had a friend who was going through what I saw as a really horrendous struggle, even though it didn't involve, sickness or health, but it was just before Christmas. And she's a single mother with a son who is 12, I think, lost everything in a fire. After being a single mother, she finally got to that point where they had a home. And She had it decorated so beautifully, and they put up their Christmas decorations, and she had the video of that because she'd videoed all her beautiful little home with the Christmas decorations. She and her son were out one evening when a fire broke out, and their home was burned almost to the ground. Almost nothing in it was salvageable, including their little dog that was home. She was so grateful that the two of them had not been home sleeping, but she was also heartbroken to lose this dog that had been her son's and his best companion after the divorce. When I encounter someone who's experiencing this kind of trauma and drama in their life, I always want to make sure I say the right thing. Sometimes silence is the best, sometimes just to hold them, but I do know it's not the time to say, this possibly is a blessing in disguise. They don't need to hear that. They don't want to hear that right now. They are in such pain. Even though we both knew that there was going to be a time that she actually saw this struggle as her gift, we both knew that. But that didn't stop the pain. That did not stop the pain of today, the loss. When the firefighters actually found the dog, he was at the back door, and they wrapped him in a blanket. He was not burned. He had simply passed from smoke inhalation, and brought the dog to them, and she just held him. Now, to say to her at that point, it's all in God's plan, would not have been helpful. But to sit there and be with her in her pain, and to hold some of it, and to give a safe place for her to break down, that was valuable, because it was almost unbearable for them. I couldn't stand back and just do nothing, but I had to carefully decide how to help. But I could see the strength of this woman. Oh yeah, and the strength of her son. I could see that they were going to emerge from this like a phoenix from the fire. They were going to be stronger. They were going to be better. They were going to be wiser. But that will be her gift to discover. It wasn't for me to bring to her that day. It wasn't for me to tout on her social media. No. My path for her now is simply to support financially, emotionally, to just listen to her with my big rabbit ears, and to sit beside her and give her a safe, warm space. It may take her a decade for the scene to change and for her heart to understand. For her vision definitely will turn to one of gratitude, but that may be something in the future. And in the meantime, for her just to know that I'm here for her, that I'll care for her. And my message to her now is just to slow down, to breathe. Take some deep breaths as you call on those inner strengths. So many times we're afraid to look inward. Other times we know that that is also where our strength is. And give us the power to guide you. That's what I wish for her. These are the principles that will see her through. First, learning to trust again. As we all go through these struggles in our life, as we struggle to learn and see how they are a gift, the first step is to trust. Trust that they are. The next step is to look inside and find your warrior. That warrior in you that will never give up. I think of that vision of Wonder Woman coming out of that battlefield and flame, and just the most resolute look on her face, coming forward with her hair streaming behind her and smudges on her face and those super long, beautiful legs that she has. But just walking forward with this most resolute sound and look on her face. We all must find our warrior as we're in struggle. The next thing I wish is for everyone who's in the middle of struggle and the storm to know that you are not a victim of this. You are stronger than the storm. And you are stronger because of that storm. You are brave. You are brave. How about that? You might think that you're the most unbrave person in the world, but let me tell you, I see you. I see me. Me, the most afraid person in the world, who hid every chance I got, who lied about everything because I was so afraid to face consequences, or I was afraid for people to know the truth and afraid of people laughing at me. I realized that I was brave, and so are you. And I'm stronger because of this struggle. I am a warrior. So in the new year, as you look at what you're going to create for the next 365 days, this is what I want you to leave this podcast with. I want you to leave with hope. Hope is the first step. I want you to leave with hope that you are going to be able to claim and step in to a beautiful space this year. Just hold hope for that. The next thing I want for you is to do not fear change. Do not be afraid if things change in your life, for that change is your journey, is your pathway to beauty. Third is to embrace your gift. Embrace the gift that is ever made for you. It is designed for you. This is your gift, whether you see it as a gift or not. Whatever lies ahead in those 365 days has been designed as your gift. And remember that you're stronger because of the storm. Isn't that a great thought? Every time you walk into a storm, you're going to be stronger for it. Your roots are going to go deeper. Your shoulder bent against the wind. You are going to stand taller and straighter because of the storm. The fifth thing is what we talked about at the very beginning. I want desperately for all of us to write our vision for 2023. What are we going to create? Take some big audacious goal for sure. Maybe it's lose weight. Maybe it's climb a mountain. Maybe it's get a divorce. Maybe it's choosing the most loving relationship you can. Maybe it's learning to love you like you've never believed you could. But there's something out there that's a big, audacious goal. Maybe this is the year. In fact, yes, it is the year that you're going to grab a hold of that big, audacious goal and actually go for it. And the way that you do that is by setting up markers for you. As I say in my book, as I talk about climbing Kilimanjaro, you set a goal that's about 100 yards ahead of you, and you walk to that. And when you get there, you celebrate that you got that 100 yards. Take a breath, take a drink of water, and then set your next 100 yards. What do your littler goals look like? And then, of course, the third step to achieving a big, audacious goal is to watch your feet all the time. Where are those feet pointed? Are they pointed towards your goal in every step you're taking during the day, every day? Or are they getting off path? And maybe you need to yell at them, hey, feet, get back on this path over here. Come on over here. Come on. That's the goal. Remember it? That's the next 100-yard marker. It's not over there. Let's go. Find courage. Find strength. I want you to embrace my support. This is the last thing I wish for you this year. Listen to the podcast every week. Embrace my support. Actually do the things that I suggest for you. We're walking through this together, you and I. We're finding all these things that are available to us so that we can be the ultimate, beautiful, best version of ourselves that we ever dreamed. Embrace me. I want to walk with you on your journey. Receive my love as I love you. And that's how we're going to craft a meaningful life in the coming year. Namaste.
Listen to the full podcast today and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and more. Crafting a Meaningful Life with Mary Crafts.